There are certain moments in history when a certain speech at a certain time catches global attention. Churchill's Fight Them on the Beaches speech, or the British Colonel Tim Collins on the importance of being magnanimous in victory after the toppling of Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Well, is the French Senator Claude Malhuret also going to be added to the annals of history for comments he's made this week on Europe's turning point, a speech that he spoke for 8.5 minutes, a soliloquy to the Senate that's become a viral sensation, a call to arms for Europe. It's been seen by many to get its house in order. Here's Catherine Viette.
An 8-minute takedown of the American president.
Never in the history of the United States.
In a speech to his colleagues, French Senator Claude Malhuret accused Donald Trump and his administration of trying to destroy democracy.
Washington has become the court of Nero, a fiery emperor, submissive courtiers, and a ketamine-fueled jester in charge of purging the civil service. Trump's message? There is no point in being his ally since he will not defend you. He will impose more customs duties on you than on his enemies and will threaten to seize your territories while supporting the dictatorships that invade you.
His scathing remarks following on the heels of Washington's announcement that it's freezing aid to Ukraine. But his speech wasn't all dire warnings. Malhuret conceded that in American history, freedom fighters have always prevailed, and they're beginning to raise their heads. The video from last week has gone viral with more than 600,000 views. Several U.S. media outlets have been playing the clip, while the Democratic Party scrambles to come up with a plan to challenge some of Trump's proposals.
Claude Malhuret is with us this evening. Great to have you on the programme, Claude. First, let me ask you, you gave that speech. Often they come and go, don't they, in the Senate? As you walked out that day, did you think people will pay attention, given the passion that you put into that?
Well, I was absolutely sure that people in France would pay attention because this is not my first speech in the Senate, and I have a number of followers. But I was absolutely surprised that someone would translate the speech. I didn't translate the speech, but someone translated it into English, and that it would become so viral in the United States. I tried to understand why. And then I read a little part of all the messages I have received. I've received thousands of messages, but the impression I got, the sensation I got is that they don't have answers to what Trump is doing now from their own politicians, and they are glad to find answers coming from outside. There is a lack of answer from the American politicians. The Republicans are afraid of Trump. The Democrats are still paralyzed by their defeat in the presidential elections. And nobody seems to. This is why what I can read in the messages. The many Americans are angry at what is happening. And they try to find answers outside of the United States when they don't come from the American politicians.
Strikes me as two things going on. I've got the script of the speech in front of me, that this is a very calculated sense of almost getting your anger out on the page, methodically going through the moments that you felt actually this was a key turning point, that the Americans had turned their backs, looking at the Munich Security Conference, the moment J.D. Vance started to give that very blunt critique of Europe as he saw it, about free speech as well, suggesting that just wasn't in existence. You say here, I have confidence and solidarity of American democracy in the country already protesting, but in 1 month, Donald Trump has done more harm to America than in 4 years of his last presidency. We are at war with a dictator. Now we are fighting against a dictator supported by a traitor. Tell us about that.
This is the feeling here in Europe, of course, and I think this is the feeling also of many Americans. It's the how to say what happened in the Oval Office between Trump, Vance, and Zelensky was absolutely unbearable here. The fact that Trump is designating Putin as the good guy and Zelensky as the aggressor. All of this is really intolerable here in Europe. But the main reason of anger is the fact that the Atlantic Alliance seems to be shuttering. We don't know where it's going to go. And at the same time, I might say, thank you for a small part, for a little part. Thank you, Trump, because now the Europeans have understood the problem, have understood the risk, have understood the danger, and they have understood what they haven't been understanding for 40 years is that Europe needs its strategic autonomy. This is what is happening. The speeches by Ursula von der Leyen or Friedrich Merz, the new German chancellor, show how they will be followed by actions and not only by words. But I think the Europeans are, for the first time in many years, are understanding that they need to build their own defense autonomy.
You also asked towards the end of the piece, Claude, let me quote this to you. You question openly about, is this the end of the Atlantic Alliance? The risk, you say, is great. And you say, in recent days, Zelensky's public humiliation, all the crazy decisions over the past few months have finally stirred Americans into action. Quote, poll numbers plummeting, Republicans elected officials greeted by hostile crowds in constituencies, even Fox News becoming critical. So your point here is that you feel that what President Trump is doing isn't universally being met in the US with satisfaction right now.
Well, this is my feeling, and this is my feeling when I receive all the messages on the different social media. I think many Americans, included many of those who voted for Trump, were not prepared to what is happening, didn't foresee what is happening. At the same time, inside the Atlantic Alliance, but also the problem of tariffs with Canada or Mexico, the declaration, how should I say, the threatening of Greenland, Panama, and so on. I'm sure many Americans, included those who voted for Trump, were not ready for that. They are. It's a deception. They are unquiet, and they are probably, as we are in Europe today, very angry.
Now, let me put this to you. I listened to those supporting Donald Trump, and I even heard actually the former British Defence Secretary Michael Fallon say this week, let's see what happens in Saudi Arabia. We don't know if publicly what Donald Trump is saying is just in order to get to the room, and the real work starts in Saudi Arabia, where we may see something where there is more pressure put on the Russians, but at least they're there. So give him time. How do you see that?
Well, as nobody can, as Trump is absolutely unpredictable, and that is, in fact, his strategy to be unpredictable. Of course, things could change absolutely in every respect. So I don't know what's going to happen in Saudi Arabia, but things may change. Up to now, when you hear the position of Trump saying that Putin is a good guy and that Zelensky is the aggressor, I don't think it's going to change very much. But I admit that we can see, that we're going to see many things which you haven't seen before. Right now, these things are absolutely despicable. I hope that they will go in the right direction. I'm really not sure of that.
And have you heard back from? Because with things like this, Claude, let's face it, when they go so big, they get to the attention on X of Elon Musk. Have you heard back from him or any of his supporters, supplicants, in taking the flak?
No, I didn't hear anything. Generally the best way on X and social media is not to, in some circumstances, is not to answer, but rather than to let the things be forgotten. After all, everybody can think that after a few days we'll talk of something else. This is the problem of the social media, but never had any answer and any reaction.
And briefly, Claude, come off the hour, come off the man. There's so many messages you're getting, and so it's more than 1 million times that we've seen these your statement retweeted and on YouTube as well. Are you walking down the streets of Paris or in your constituency, and are people recognising you and saying, you're the guy that wrote that speech?
Well, I'm not how should I say? I'm not unknown, neither in my constituency nor in the street of Paris. I was in the French government before, and right now I'm senator. So some people, part of the French people, know me. But yes, right now, those who know me or those who didn't know me before, and that I see in the streets, most of them, I would say 99.9% of them, tell me that I was right to make this speech and that Trump has to be addressed. Trump knows only, like all the apprentice dictators, knows only force. I don't know the word in English, rapport de force en français, knows only the strength. And this is how it should be addressed.
Claude, pleasure to talk to you this evening. Claude Malhuret, a French senator and viral sensation. Good to talk to you. And stay with us here on France 24. We'll be back in just a moment.